Hello, welcome to the channel. Today we have an incredible story of overcoming challenges that will keep you engaged until the very last minute. Let's meet Dr. Sarah Bennett, a successful surgeon who, behind her brilliant career, carries childhood traumas that have deeply marked her life. Throughout this video, you will discover how she found the strength to confront her past and free herself once and for all. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more inspiring stories like this one. And let us know in the comments which city you are watching from. Let's embark on this journey of transformation and courage together. Have you ever paused to think about the weight an object can carry? For me, that weight was an old pendant, a symbol of the control and pain that accompanied me for years. My name is Sarah Bennett, and I am a surgeon at New York Presbyterian Hospital. At 37, I am admired for my precision and dedication. However, behind this facade of professionalism lies a painful secret that has shaped my life since childhood. I grew up in the shadow of my stepfather, Richard Marshall, a man who wielded words as weapons to control me. He possessed a pendant that he kept locked away, an object that became the center of his power over me. In moments of tension, he would display it, saying things like, "You are nothing without me, and everything you do depends on me." These words echoed in my mind, fueling a deep sense of inferiority. My mother, Helen, was always submissive and emotionally absent, preferring to maintain appearances rather than confront Richard's harshness. When I sought support from her, I received only empty silence and the phrase, "We need to keep up appearances." This lack of support left me isolated and marked, intensifying my desire to escape any form of vulnerability. As a result, I channeled all my energy into work and studies, trying to bury the pain and ignore the emotional wounds that haunted me. Even so, the trauma of my childhood continued to manifest in my adult life. I hesitated to participate in social events, kept myself on the sidelines in meetings, and frequently declined invitations to gatherings. All of this was out of fear of exposing my vulnerability. The turning point came when I treated a young patient who had a story of abuse similar to mine. This experience triggered an emotional crisis that forced me to confront the past and the significance of Richard's pendant. What did it really symbolize? Why did it still hold so much power over me? These questions began to consume me and pushed me to seek help. I decided to begin treatment with Dr. Thomas Greene, an experienced and empathetic psychiatrist specializing in complex trauma. From the first session, I realized that the pendant was more than just a simple object. It was an emotional trigger that carried all the control and manipulation I had suffered. Dr. Greene helped me understand that I needed to detach the emotional weight from this object, teaching me to reframe the memories associated with it. During the sessions, I revisited painful memories, such as those moments when Richard held the pendant and hurled degrading words, reinforcing his power over me. I also explored my mother's lack of support, realizing that this omission was as painful as the abuse itself. Each new revelation felt like a blow, but also an opportunity for liberation. As treatment progressed, I experienced small personal victories. I initiated conversations with colleagues, accepted invitations I would have previously declined, and in a symbolic moment, I let my hair down, signaling that I was beginning to free myself from the control I had exerted over myself. In one of the final sessions, Dr. Greene offered me a metaphor that resonated deeply. Sometimes, the past is like a broken mirror. We can choose to see only the pieces that hurt us or look at the reflection we can reconstruct. This metaphor made me reflect on my journey. I had the option to transform my pain into something positive. At the climax of my journey, I made a decision about the pendant. In one last session with Dr. Greene, I realized I was ready to let go. I walked to the Hudson River, holding the pendant one last time, reflecting on how much it had controlled my life. After a long moment of introspection, I threw it into the water, leaving my past behind. The final scene shows me walking across the bridge, looking at the horizon, finally feeling a peace and freedom I had never experienced before. The idea of building a family now floats in the air, but the most important thing is that I have regained control over my own life. As I walked across the bridge, feeling the cool wind from the Hudson River on my face, I realized that the true battle was just beginning. Throwing the pendant into the water had been a symbolic act, but the real struggle against the emotional weight I carried within me still manifested in various aspects of my life. My work at the hospital, which had once been a source of pride and fulfillment, began to transform into a battleground of internal conflicts. The pressure to be the best surgeon and meet high expectations was becoming increasingly intense. After each surgery, when the compliments came, an internal voice whispered that I didn't deserve that recognition. It was as if I was fighting against an echo from the past, which insisted on reminding me that I was nothing without the control Richard had over me. This thought tormented me, and with each new achievement, I felt more anxious, as if I were on a stage, about to be unmasked. It was during one of those exhausting weeks that I met Laura, a new nurse at the hospital. From the very beginning, we connected. She had a vibrant energy and a knack for seeing the best in people, something I couldn't do for myself. Laura had also overcome challenges in her life, and that empathy made her a valuable friend. However, as our friendship grew, I found myself struggling against the urge to shut down. When she invited me to a happy hour with the team, my heart raced. The thought of socializing outside of work paralyzed me with fear. Richard's voice echoed in my mind, "You are not worthy of being loved or accepted." Declining Laura's invitation brought forth a new wave of guilt. I wanted to be the friend she deserved, but the fear of exposing my vulnerability was stronger. Instead of opening up and explaining why I couldn't go, I simply said I was busy. The disappointment in her eyes cut like a knife, and I realized I was repeating the cycle of the past, isolating myself and pushing away those who cared about me. In the days that followed, the pressure at work increased. A complicated surgery was scheduled, and I knew it would be challenging. Dr. Carter, my supervisor, was confident in my abilities, but I felt that any mistake could send me back into the darkness I was trying to leave behind. As I prepared for the operation, a new uncertainty arose. What if I failed? What if I wasn't good enough? The emotional tension built, and I began to question whether I had truly freed myself from the control of the past or if I was just putting a mask over the wounds that still throbbed. The surgery began, and in the middle of the procedure, something unexpected happened. Excessive bleeding caused the team to mobilize quickly. I felt the gazes of my colleagues, the growing pressure, and in a moment of despair, my mind blanked out to the voices around me. I caught a glimpse of Richard, his oppressive presence reminding me of all the times I had failed to meet expectations. The feeling that everything was falling apart made me hesitate. It was in that instant that I remembered what Dr. Greene had taught me. I needed to reclaim the strength I had found in my journey of self-discovery. I took a deep breath, refocused on the surgery, and made the decisions I needed to, refusing to let fear take over. With the help of the team, we were able to stabilize the patient. In the end, the relief and gratitude were palpable, but for me, the victory was internal. I had faced one of my greatest fears and stood my ground. However, the struggle wasn't over. The pressure at the hospital and my distance from Laura weighed heavily on me. The friendship that was beginning to blossom started to feel like an overwhelming responsibility. I knew I needed to open up to her, but every time I thought about sharing my past and my struggles, the fear of rejection paralyzed me once again. The battle between the need for connection and the desire to protect myself became increasingly intense. Still, I decided I couldn't let insecurity take over. I summoned my courage and, in a moment of vulnerability, sought out Laura. I found her in the break room, and with my heart racing, I began to share about my childhood, about Richard, and how it had shaped who I was. As the words flowed out, I realized that the weight I carried was starting to dissipate. Laura not only listened but also shared her own struggles and challenges. The connection that formed between us was genuine, and I finally understood that opening up didn't mean weakness, it was an important step toward healing. As our friendship strengthened, I discovered that each challenge was an opportunity to rise again. The fight against the past continued, but now, I had someone by my side. The journey wouldn't be easy, but instead of looking back with fear, I began to look forward with hope. And so, I realized that the path to freedom wasn't linear, but filled with new beginnings and precious lessons to be learned. From that day on, my friendship with Laura became a safe harbor. However, the more I opened up, the more I felt the weight of expectations. The pressure at the hospital increased, and each surgery was a constant battle between the skills I possessed and the internal voice insisting that I wasn't good enough. The fear of failure accompanied me like a shadow that wouldn't let me be at peace. One day, while reviewing patient records, I received a message from Laura inviting me to a charity event that the hospital was organizing. The event would be an opportunity not only to contribute to a good cause but also to socialize with colleagues and even make new connections. My heart raced. The idea of being in a place full of people, all expecting something from me, made me anxious. The invitation reminded me of the rejection I feared and the feeling of inadequacy that always accompanied me. I decided that I couldn't let fear overcome me again. I wanted to go, and more than that, I wanted to support Laura. However, as I prepared for the event, Richard's voice whispered again, "You are not worthy of being accepted." The emotional weight was so intense that, for a moment, I thought about canceling. I took a deep breath and instead sent a message to Laura confirming my attendance. The relief was immediate, but anxiety soon took its place. On the night of the event, the hall was illuminated and filled with familiar and unfamiliar faces. Laura was excited, and as she moved among the people, I felt like a stranger in a world that didn't belong to me. The pressure to be sociable and the need to appear strong began to consume me. With each forced smile, each superficial conversation, my anxiety intensified. And then, everything collapsed. During a conversation, a colleague made a comment about a surgical procedure I had recently performed. He praised my skill, but suddenly, a wave of insecurity washed over me. What if he knew how much I hesitated? How close I came to failing? The feeling of being on a stage, with the spotlight on me, became unbearable. I needed to step away, and I went to the bathroom, where despair took over. Looking at my reflection in the mirror, I saw a lost woman, fighting against ghosts from the past. Tears streamed down my face, and the pain of rejection and the fear of not being good enough consumed me. Laura found me there, and instead of leaving me alone, she simply stood silently by my side. Her support was a balm for my wounded soul. When I managed to compose myself, she looked me in the eyes and said, "You don't have to be perfect. You are amazing just the way you are." Those words touched me deeply, but the internal battle continued. How could I accept that? How could I believe I was worthy of love and friendship? In the days that followed, my internal struggle intensified. The pressure at the hospital didn't lessen, and I was starting to feel overwhelmed. Each new day, I questioned whether I had truly made the right choice in pursuing such a demanding career. Surgeries became a battlefield, and every mistake, no matter how small, plunged me into despair. In one particularly difficult surgery, with a critically ill patient, I slowly lost confidence in myself. The fear of failure turned into panic. After that surgery, I knew I needed help. I found a therapist who could help me deal with anxiety and the weight of the past. Therapy was a safe space where I could explore my emotions without fear of judgment. During one of the sessions, I realized that fighting against the ghosts of the past didn't mean I was weak, it meant I was trying to heal. At the same time, my friendship with Laura began to face challenges. She was dealing with her own issues, and in a moment of misunderstanding, I saw her pull away. What had started as a safe space turned into a source of anguish. I didn't know how to approach the situation, and the thought of losing her friendship paralyzed me. The vulnerability I had shared now felt like a weakness, and the guilt of not being the friend she deserved tormented me. The charity event had ignited a flame within me, but now I was struggling to keep that flame alive. Each challenge was a reminder that the journey of overcoming wouldn't be easy. However, at the same time, I realized that these struggles were necessary. They were shaping me and teaching me to value the strength that lay within me, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. And so, the struggle continued. The ups and downs, the victories and defeats, all of it was part of my path to freedom. I needed to learn to embrace every part of myself, each day, one step at a time. It was in this struggle that I found true strength, and with it, the desire to move forward, even when the path seemed dark. That morning began like any other, but something in the air felt different. I was on my way to the hospital, my heart racing and my mind filled with tumultuous thoughts. Therapy was helping me, but there were still days when insecurity loomed large, like a shadow that wouldn't let me be at peace. That morning, a message from Laura arrived on my phone. She was inviting me to lunch with some colleagues from the hospital, and for a moment, the invitation made me smile. But soon fear took over. What if I said something wrong? What if they noticed just how insecure I really was? I decided to go, despite the tightness in my chest. Upon arriving at the restaurant, I noticed the conversation flowed easily among my colleagues, everyone laughing and sharing stories. However, I felt like a spectator, unable to integrate. As I listened, something caught my attention. One of the most respected doctors in the hospital, Dr. Eduardo, was recounting a recent case. He spoke with such enthusiasm about the surgery he performed and how he saved a patient's life. Yet, as he spoke, something inside me began to stir. His words echoed everything I feared. I almost failed. I had a moment of doubt, but I managed to stay calm, and everything turned out okay, he said, with a confident smile. That sentence reverberated in my mind. I almost failed. That was exactly how I felt during every surgery I performed. The fear of failing haunted me. And for a moment, I wondered, what if he knew the pressure I felt? What if, contrary to what everyone thought, I wasn't as good as I appeared? In a moment of desperation, I got up and went to the bathroom again. Looking in the mirror, I realized I was on the verge of tears. Insecurity was overwhelming me, and the idea of being seen as a fraud consumed me. It felt as if all my efforts to appear strong were crumbling before my eyes. But in that instant, something unexpected happened. A stranger walked into the bathroom. She looked as distressed as I felt, with tears in her eyes. Instead of backing away, I faced her. "Are you okay?" I asked, almost without thinking. She looked at me, and in an instant, began to open up about her own struggles. She was a nurse, facing the pressure of a new position. The insecurity I saw in her was the same I felt within myself. And at that moment, I realized I was not alone. The conversation flowed, and as she spoke, I opened up too. I shared my insecurities, my struggles. I talked about my friendship with Laura, my fear of not being good enough, and how the pressure of the hospital affected me. The woman, who introduced herself as Anna, smiled at me and said, "We all have our fears. The important thing is to know that it doesn't define us." That exchange of vulnerabilities was a turning point for me. I realized that, like me, everyone was fighting their own battles. When I left the bathroom, my heart felt lighter. I hadn't solved all my problems, but I had found a small thread of hope. The conversation with Anna made me reconsider what it meant to be a healthcare professional. It wasn't just about success and skills, it was about humanity and mutual support. I returned to the table and, for the first time, felt a bit more confident. Instead of hiding, I began to engage in conversations, share stories, and even ask questions. The weight of expectation started to dissipate. Laura shot me an approving glance, and that gave me an extra boost. That lunch turned into something unexpected. The conversations deepened, and I realized there was so much more to each person around me than just their appearances of success. Each of them had their own struggles, their insecurities. I was not alone. By the end of the day, as I drove home, a new perspective began to take shape within me. The fear of failing was still there, but now I saw it as part of my journey. I didn't need to be perfect, I just needed to be myself. And, more importantly, I could rely on others for support and learning. The struggle wasn't just mine, it was a collective fight. Life is made of ups and downs, and I was beginning to understand that each mistake, each doubt, was an opportunity for growth. The friendship with Laura and the unexpected connection with Anna showed me that I didn't have to carry all the weight alone. And so, instead of letting fear paralyze me, I decided to use it as fuel to become the professional I had always dreamed of being, embracing the imperfection and beauty of the journey. That conversation with Anna in the bathroom left a profound mark on me. In the following days, I realized that the fear that once paralyzed me was transforming into a source of motivation. With each passing day, I tried to open up more, not only with my colleagues but also with myself. The small interactions became moments of learning. I began to listen to other people's stories with more attention, realizing that everyone had their own battles. However, the new perspective also brought new challenges. The pressure in the hospital did not lessen, on the contrary, it seemed that responsibilities were only increasing. I felt more confident, but when I faced a difficult situation in the operating room, doubts resurfaced. It was a complicated surgery, and as I prepared the instruments, a cold wave of anxiety hit me. The voice of insecurity whispered again that I wasn't capable. The difference was that now I tried to recognize this fear as part of the process. During the surgery, when the chief surgeon asked me to perform a procedure I had never done alone, my heart raced. Instead of panicking, I took a deep breath and remembered the conversation with Anna. These words echoed in my mind, everyone has their fears. I forced myself to remember that making a mistake wouldn't make me a fraud. With the team around me, I asked for help and explained the situation. Their support made me feel more secure, and I was able to complete the procedure successfully. After that experience, I realized that the vulnerability that once embarrassed me now made me stronger. Conversations with my colleagues became more open and honest. Laura and I grew even closer, sharing our insecurities and triumphs. They were not just my friends, they were my allies. One day, while we were having coffee, Laura told me that I had changed. I was more confident, more present. Those words touched me deeply. But not everything was easy. On some occasions, insecurity still attacked me at unexpected moments. One day, during a meeting, I was called to present a new project. My heart began to race, and my hands were sweaty. Despite being more confident, the fear of being judged was still strong. But instead of staying silent, I decided to share my story. I talked about my struggles and how the team had supported me. In the end, I realized that people were more connected to me than I had expected. They listened to me with empathy, and instead of criticism, I received encouragement. Another challenging situation I faced was with a new resident who joined the team. He was extremely talented and self-assured, which triggered a wave of insecurity in me. I found myself comparing my skills to his, making me feel inadequate. But instead of succumbing to that, I decided to approach him. I scheduled a coffee, and we talked about his experiences and challenges. He also had his insecurities. This exchange reminded me that behind apparent confidence, there are often similar doubts. Despite all these advancements, I still had difficult days. Some nights, as I lay down, anxiety would haunt me again. I questioned whether I was truly on the right path and if I would be able to face the challenges ahead. In those moments, I often remembered Anna's words about how vulnerability can be a sign of strength. I began to write in a journal, recording my thoughts and feelings. This became a way to process my emotions and reflect on what I was learning. One day, while writing, I realized that the fear of failure was still present, but it no longer dominated me. I was learning to make space for vulnerability and to transform it into strength. Instead of hiding my insecurities, I accepted them as part of who I am. This didn't mean I didn't feel fear, it meant I was willing to move forward anyway. The journey was still long, and new obstacles appeared every day. But I was more willing to face them, knowing I wasn't alone. Through the connection with my colleagues, sincere conversations, and mutual support, I was building a network of trust that helped me navigate the turbulent waters of professional life. With each step, I felt stronger and more authentic. And, in the end, I discovered that true strength comes from the ability to be vulnerable and to accept imperfection. This new perspective not only transformed my career but also my personal life, showing me that each day is a new opportunity to grow and connect with others. That conversation with Anna in the bathroom left a deep mark on me. In the following days, I noticed that the fear that had once paralyzed me was transforming into a source of motivation. Each day, I tried to open up more, not only with my colleagues but, more importantly, with myself. The small interactions became moments of learning. I started to listen to others' stories more attentively, realizing that everyone had their own battles. However, this new perspective didn't come without challenges. The pressure at the hospital was increasing, and I felt that my responsibilities were only growing. Even though I had more confidence, when faced with a difficult situation in the operating room, doubts resurfaced. It was a complicated surgery, and as I prepared the instruments, a cold wave of anxiety hit me. The voice of insecurity whispered that I wasn't capable. But now, I tried to recognize that fear as part of the process. During the surgery, the chief surgeon asked me to perform a procedure I had never done alone. My heart raced, but instead of panicking, I took a deep breath and remembered my conversation with Anna. Those words echoed in my mind. Instead of staying silent, I asked for help and explained the situation to the team. Their support made me feel more secure, and I was able to complete the procedure successfully. That experience made me realize that the vulnerability I had once felt ashamed of was now making me stronger. Conversations with my colleagues became more open and honest. Laura and I grew even closer, sharing our insecurities and triumphs. They were not just my friends, they were my allies. One day, while we were having coffee, Laura told me I had changed. I was more confident, more present. Those words touched me deeply. But not everything was easy. At times, insecurity would strike at unexpected moments. During a meeting, I was called to present a new project. My heart began to race, and my hands were sweaty. Despite feeling more confident, the fear of being judged was still strong. But instead of staying silent, I decided to share my story. I talked about my struggles and how the team had supported me. In the end, I realized that people were more connected to me than I had expected. They listened to me with empathy, and instead of criticism, I received encouragement. Another challenging situation arose with a new resident who joined the team. He was extremely talented and self-assured, which sparked a wave of insecurity in me. I found myself comparing my skills to his, feeling inadequate. But rather than letting that consume me, I decided to approach him. I scheduled a coffee, and we talked about his experiences and challenges. He also had his insecurities. This exchange reminded me that behind apparent confidence, there are often similar doubts. Despite all these advancements, I still had difficult days. Some nights, as I lay down, anxiety would haunt me again. I questioned whether I was truly on the right path and whether I could face the challenges ahead. In those moments, I often remembered Anna's words and how vulnerability could be a sign of strength. I began to keep a journal, documenting my thoughts and feelings. This became a way to process my emotions and reflect on what I was learning. One day, while writing, I realized that the fear of failure was still present, but it no longer dominated me. I was learning to make space for vulnerability and turn it into strength. Instead of hiding my insecurities, I accepted them as part of who I am. This didn't mean that I didn't feel fear, it meant I was willing to move forward anyway. The journey was still long, and new obstacles arose each day. But I was more willing to face them, knowing I wasn't alone. Through connecting with colleagues, having sincere conversations, and mutual support, I was building a network of trust that helped me navigate the turbulent waters of professional life. With each step, I felt stronger, more authentic. Ultimately, I discovered that true strength came from the ability to be vulnerable and accept imperfection. This new perspective not only transformed my career but also my personal life, showing me that each day is a new opportunity to grow and connect with others. The day of the surgery that I had dreaded so much had finally arrived. It was a complex operation, and the pressure was high. The team was gathered in the operating room, and I felt my heart racing with each passing second. I remembered all the small victories I had achieved in the past months, but at that moment, everything felt like it was crumbling. The chief surgeon, a respected and demanding man, looked at me and asked me to take the lead in a crucial procedure. The butterflies in my stomach returned, and insecurity whispered in my ears. "You can't do this. What if something goes wrong?" I thought about backing down, about hiding behind the team, but instead, I took a deep breath. I remembered the conversation with Anna about how vulnerability can be a strength. Steadily, I looked at the surgeon and said, "I'm nervous, but I want to try. Can I count on your help?" The team nodded, and I felt warmth in my chest. It was the first time I had openly admitted my fear in a moment like that. The surgery began, and adrenaline took over. Every movement was critical, and I had to concentrate. However, memories of insecurity started to invade my mind. I remembered the new resident and how he seemed more prepared. The comparison crept in again, but I didn't allow it to dominate me. With each cut and each suture, I reminded myself that I was there to learn and grow. Instead of feeling alone, I realized that the team was with me. Each of us, with our own insecurities, was united by a greater purpose. During the surgery, something unexpected happened. One of the instruments I needed was out of my reach. Panic began to set in, but instead of succumbing to anxiety, I asked for help. "Can someone please pass me the clamp?" The team reacted immediately, and the atmosphere in the room turned collaborative. That simple exchange made me realize that I didn't have to carry the weight alone. The vulnerability that had once embarrassed me was now a bridge connecting me to others. As the surgery progressed, I became more focused. The procedure required precision and calm, and the team was by my side, supporting me every step of the way. The words of encouragement I received during the operation echoed in my mind. When we finally reached the most critical moment, I felt strong. The anxiety that had once overwhelmed me was now fuel, driving me to act with confidence. We completed the surgery successfully. When the chief surgeon turned to me, a smile of approval lit up his face. "You did a great job," he said, and that praise was like balm for my soul. In that moment, I realized that I had overcome one of my greatest challenges. It wasn't just about the surgery itself, but about how I faced my fear and sought help. After the surgery, while the team prepared for the next procedure, I sat in a corner and let the tears flow. They were tears of relief, joy, and gratitude. I looked at the team around me, those who had become my friends and allies. The connection we built was stronger than I could have imagined. I had learned to accept my vulnerability and use it as a driving force. In the days that followed, it wasn't just my confidence that grew within me, it was a new perspective on what it means to succeed. I learned that being successful isn't about being free from failures, but rather having the courage to face challenges and learn from them. And above all, I realized that true wealth lies in the relationships we build and the support we offer one another. I would still have difficult days, but now I knew I wasn't alone on this journey. The lessons I learned from Anna, from Laura, and even from the new resident became part of me. Each battle, each mistake, each success shaped me and made me stronger. I discovered that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness but an open door to connection and growth. I left that operating room not only as a more confident doctor but as a person who had learned to embrace her imperfections and allow herself to be human. And as I look to the future, I realized that each day is a new opportunity to grow, to connect, and to live fully. After that day, life at the clinic went on, but I felt different. The confidence I gained in the operating room extended beyond my work. It permeated every aspect of my life. Each time I entered the consultation room, I looked at my patients with a new perspective. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, I realized that every interaction was an opportunity to learn and grow. One morning, while reviewing medical records, I heard a knock at the door. It was Anna, with her warm smile. She invited me for a coffee, and as we walked, I noticed how the little things had changed. The conversation flowed naturally, and I felt comfortable sharing my experiences in surgery. What had once been a burden was now becoming a story of overcoming challenges. "I think you really found yourself that day," Anna commented, stirring her cup. "You were so focused and determined." It inspired the whole team. "It was a pivotal moment for me," I replied. "I learned that I don't have to face everything alone. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a pathway to strength." Anna smiled, and I realized that by sharing my journey, I was also inspiring her. The connection we created grew even stronger, and I saw how vulnerability could bring people together. Soon, the team began to meet more frequently, not just to discuss cases, but also to share personal experiences. In one of those gatherings, the new resident, who had previously seemed so confident and prepared, opened up about his insecurities. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm not good enough," he said, looking at the floor. "But seeing you in that surgery made me realize that we all have our fears." "Exactly," I replied. "And it's normal to feel that fear. The important thing is that we can talk about it and support each other. No one here is perfect." These exchanges began to change the team dynamics. We created an environment where vulnerability was welcomed. Each of us brought our struggles and fears to the surface, which not only strengthened our bonds but also improved our collaboration. There was less competition and more support. Every victory, no matter how small, was celebrated. Days passed, and in a moment of reflection, I sat down with a notebook in hand. I decided to record everything I had learned: vulnerability, courage, the importance of mutual support. I looked back and saw how each small step contributed to a larger change, not just in me, but in the entire team. And as I wrote, I felt a wave of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons, the challenges, for every person who crossed my path. One afternoon, I met with Laura, the nurse who had always been a source of inspiration. "You've changed a lot since the last time we talked," she said as we had tea. "You seem lighter, more confident." "It's been a journey," I replied. "I've learned to accept that vulnerability is part of the process. And that has made me stronger." Laura nodded, and we shared moments of laughter and reflection. The conversation not only brought me relief but also solidified the idea that we all face similar challenges at some point. It's this connection that makes us human. As weeks turned into months, I realized that the change was not just internal. Patients began to notice my new approach. Instead of merely treating illnesses, I listened to their stories, their anxieties. I saw the difference in how I related to them. What had once been an automated job became an experience of empathy and understanding. And so, the interactions became more meaningful. Sometimes, I still felt a flutter of nerves before a procedure, but now, instead of letting it paralyze me, I channeled that energy to my advantage. I remembered what I had learned: vulnerability is a bridge, not a barrier. Life went on, and with it, new challenges arose. But now, I knew I was not alone. The team had become a support network, and we all grew together. The lessons I learned in the operating room were just the beginning. The real learning was in the ongoing journey of allowing myself to be human, to collaborate, and to embrace vulnerability as a strength that connects us. And so, each day became a new opportunity to not only be a better doctor but a better person. As time went by, I began to realize that the change I experienced went far beyond myself. The team became a true home, a place where mutual support and empathy flourished. The vulnerability that once paralyzed me was now the key that opened doors to deep conversations and meaningful connections. Every day, as I entered the clinic, I felt a renewed energy, as if each challenge was an invitation to grow even more. I remember one particular day when a patient, Mrs. Maria, arrived visibly anxious. Instead of just asking questions about her treatment, I sat down next to her and listened. She shared not only her health concerns but also stories from her life, her fears, and her hopes. In that moment, I realized that my role went beyond being just a doctor. I was a listener, a companion in this healing journey. At the end of the consultation, Mrs. Maria thanked me with tears in her eyes, and I knew I had made a difference. The changes I experienced not only impacted my patients but also transformed the atmosphere within the team. The new resident, who had previously felt insecure, began to open up more and share his ideas. Our meetings became a safe space to discuss not only clinical cases but also our personal struggles. This constant exchange of support and understanding created an environment of collaboration that we all appreciated. Each of us brought our own stories to the table, and this strengthened us both as professionals and as human beings. Reflecting on this journey, I realize I have learned to accept my imperfections and to see the beauty in vulnerability. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it. Every day is a new opportunity for a fresh start, not only in my work but in all areas of life. With each new challenge, I remind myself that vulnerability is a bridge that connects me to others, and by embracing this connection, I have become a better version of myself. Now, looking to the future, I feel a renewed hope. I am ready to face whatever comes my way, with the certainty that I am not alone. The support of my team and the lessons I have learned have given me a new perspective on what it truly means to be successful. Success is not just about professional achievements, but about the relationships we cultivate and the impact we make on the lives of those around us. I invite you to reflect on your own journey. What challenges are you facing? How can vulnerability be a strength in your life? Share your experiences in the comments. Let's create a space where we can learn from each other and support our stories. If you felt touched by this narrative, please like and subscribe to the channel. Your interaction is essential for us to continue bringing more content that inspires and connects. Remember, each day is a new chance for a fresh start, and together we can transform our vulnerabilities into strengths. Let's embrace this journey together. What was the moment in this story that touched you the most? Share with us in the comments, we really want to know. Your opinion is essential for us to bring more impactful and emotional stories. If you found this journey inspiring, Don't hesitate to share this video with someone who might also connect with this message of overcoming and starting anew. And if you want more stories that touch the heart and bring profound lessons, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be the first to watch. Your like and comment greatly help to spread this message to more people. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next emotional story.